When looking at the current meta of the Pokemon TCG, it's pretty stale as of right now. The top 4 are pretty much untouchable, leaving other fun decks to fall into obscurity due to their power level. And I decided to have a little fun with one of these cheesy little meta decks. I took Gardevoir EX to my first ever League Cup. I have played the deck previously on the channel, but that was a completely different iteration of how it could be built. This 60, I tried to focus more on the Jellicent and Diancie potential for the deck. I feel like the upsides for this version are so much higher than a straight Gardevoir deck, or maybe even the Gardevoir including the Mega Gardevoir that I had previously shown off on the channel. Mega Diancie is such a splashable card. Early game, mid game, late game, it is very efficient. You could use it early game for some quick KOs, or maybe even mid to late game, knocking out any End Zoroark or any Blood Moon or Fezandipiti on the bench, including Munkidori damage. And now the toxic part of the deck, you have Frillish and Jellicent EX. These cards can completely lock decks out of the game. One of your worst matchups is most likely Gholdengo, or maybe even Grimmsnarl, and these cards can just completely shut them down if you get them off early game. A turn 1 Frillish into a Gholdengo can stop them from using Secret Box, Earthen Vessel, Buddy Poffin, or anything that they would need to start setting up. And then let's say you build up a Gardevoir behind the Frillish lock, you can then build up a Jellicent EX hitting 180 damage each turn. I also added some techs for this deck, due to the meta of course. The first tech I decided to include due to the meta is a Team Rocket's Watchtower. This stadium card will shut down all colorless abilities, shutting down the new Dawn Charizard build, because its whole engine is just colorless abilities with the Pidgeot and the Noctowl engine. And the other tech card I decided to include is a copy of Boss's Orders. This one copy of Boss's Orders can help you early game, mid game, or late game. Let's say early game you start with Diancie and you really want to put pressure onto their early game EXs, like let's say they start with the Fezandipiti, or they use the Squawk ability to get their deck moving. You can get early pressure on them by just attaching twice and bossing it up, taking an easy 2-prize knockout. And for mid game, let's say you're into the Gardevoir mirror where they also are running a Jellicent EX. You can boss up something on the bench to allow yourself to use your tools and your items. And for the late game scenarios, let's imagine you're ahead of prizing and you need to take a final KO, and the only way you can do that is with the Gust. You have a Boss's Orders at your disposal right away. And now for the 60. This is what I personally came up with. It's up to you if you want to change the counter catcher count down to 1 so you can keep the Boss's Orders, but I like the 2-1 as of now. And it may be a little greedy having only 1 Kirlia, but you are like a heavy Rare Candy build, so I think it's perfectly fine. Now that we've done a run through of the deck, let's jump straight into these games. Round 1, I got paired into a Dragapult. Dragapult EX and Gardevoir used to be evenly matched before the release of Journey Together, but Journey Together had introduced the Lillie's Clefairy EX. This makes it so all Dragon types on the field are weak to Psychic type. Luckily for me, I won the coin flip and I was able to go second, getting off a turn 1 Frillish log. And then the game was pretty smooth sailing. They weren't able to establish much. They got 1 Dragapult Phantom Dive off, but that was pretty much it. I was dominating the entire game. Despite it being pretty dominant over on my end, it got to a board state where he Iono'd me down to 1 card, and then I needed to top deck the Lillie's Clefairy or an Ultra Ball, and it was the Lillie's Clefairy for game. Going into game 2, I was feeling really great, but then I got paired into my friend Riley once again, and today he was on a different deck. He was on the Tank Kangaskhan deck. The main line for this deck is a turn 1 Arven getting a Precious Trolley for 2 Monkeys, 2 Bouffalons, and a Kangaskhan on the bench, preferably with a Kangaskhan in the active as well. And then for the tool off of Arven, you would grab a TM Turbo Energize to either accelerate to the Monkeys or to your Kangaskhan on the bench. You would then follow up with the Crispin to charge up the Kangaskhan in the active to start attacking. And this is one of the worst matchups because the Kangaskhan gets buffed up by not just the Bravery Charm, not just the Lively Stadium, but also by the Bouffalon's abilities reducing the amount of damage taken. Add that with Munkidori healing and Jumbo Ice Cream, it is ridiculous. However, I am running the Watchtower as a tech for this deck as well because it'll shut down the Bouffalon ability and the Kangaskhan ability, as the Kangaskhan is their main draw source throughout the game. And luckily for me, once again, I was going with the early game Frillish lock and it held me strong throughout most of the game. And my amazing Team Rocket's Watchtower tech was taking over, preventing them from drawing and completely removing the Bouffalon ability. I then managed to close out the game with a Jellicent EX in the active, just cycling damage with Munkidori, spreading it all over their bench, taking the final prize on a Shaman. You guys are going to see more of me and Riley though, as we are both going to Seattle, and I cannot wait to make a video on that because that is my first ever regional. Anyways, let's get right back into this tournament. My matchup for the 3rd round ended up being a Mega Lopunny Dusknoir deck. This deck is so weird to me. This deck was still relatively new at the time that I was recording this, and I didn't know any of the lines, I didn't know how to play against this deck. I just knew that my Watchtower was going to be my friend here. I understand how the Mega Lopunny works and the Dusknoirs and all that. My question was just, what do I target here? What lines do I want to take? And that ended up being my downfall because I just didn't end up knowing what to do. I held strong with the Frillish lock early game and Watchtower, but I ended up whiffing on energy for game and he had a KO next turn, and that's my first loss of this tournament. I am now 2-1. After that loss and being down 2-1, I was hoping that I would maybe run into a good matchup, but you know, the variance gods gave me Joltik Box. Joltik Box is a horrifying matchup if they're able to get off the early Iron Hands against the Frillish, which is why for the matchup I opted to not use Frillish at all. I tried to be as aggro as I could. And I managed to play this matchup as perfect as I possibly could. He took an early Ampy very much, but ended up playing most of the game with a Mega Diancie taking the knockouts, and then I used a crucial Turo to get rid of my Munkidori on the bench, preventing them from taking any more prize cards for the rest of the game. And in order to finish the game off, I had the best play I possibly could want. I had a charged up Screamtail in the active. All I had to do was snipe the Mew EX on the bench that didn't have a Bravery Charm for game. Now that I'm 4-1, I have one final challenge. Either IDing this match or winning the next match, because if I do either one of those, then I am in top cut. And just my luck, I get paired into the only junior there. He doesn't want to ID, he wants to play it out, so I was forced to play that out, and he was playing Goldango. I hate Goldango. And honestly, I'm just gonna sum up how that game went. I ended up whiffing on Gardevoir pretty much the whole game. I kept them under item lock a little bit, and it got to a point where I could have won if I had not whiffed Gardevoir on my final turn, but I guess it just wasn't in the cards for me to make top cut. The worst part is, after looking at the standings, if I would have done the ID, I would have made top cut due to my resistance being ridiculously high. Despite this tragic ending, I still managed to do pretty good in my opinion. This is my first League Cup and I made top 8, securing myself some points and some prize packs. This was a great first experience with the League Cup. It was all really smooth. I feel like the mistakes that I made, I can improve on, and there's nothing else to do but learn. And I'm going to use these mistakes and this learning curve so that I can win Seattle Regionals in February. However, I will not be playing this deck to Seattle Regionals. The next set, Ascended Heroes, is releasing on January 30th. And it has one specific card that's going to make one deck incredibly powerful. And I can't wait to see how I'll do with this deck. That's all for now though. JDTCG signing out. Subscribe, like, and hit that bell. Peace.